Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us for today's Business First conversation. These programs are sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we truly thank them for their support in bringing us great information. My name is Petey Stefanik, and I'm with Southwest Michigan First. I've been part of Southwest Michigan First for about 14 years, and this series of conversations are really intended to bring topics that are important to you, small and large businesses, to the forefront. So we're very pleased to bring this to you today. We hope it'll bring you some great value, and we're going to bring you some great experts today as well. A few things before we get started, a little bit on the Zoom housekeeping. You know all these things, but please keep yourself muted during the program. We will be using the chat box for all questions, and Kelsey will be doing that. Kelsey McKay, our teammate, will be monitoring that to take care of those. Also, the program is being recorded, just to let you know. Today, we are joined by a couple of great individuals who are going to share some information with us. We have Ashley Iovieno from Michigan Works Southwest, and she will be talking about the Going Pro Talent program, as well as Bonnie Emmons from Sigma Machine, and she's going to give you some user insights and tips on how to make the most of this program for you. So for the format today, Ashley's going to kick us off, and she's going to start with an overview of the entire program and give you a lot of details. And then after that, Bonnie is going to give us a few insider tips on the program and help you get started. So without any further conversation, Ashley, go ahead and take us off.
Well, thank you, Petey, and welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here this morning. So thank you to our partners at Southwest Michigan First for holding this session this morning. We appreciate that partnership, being able to get to you all employers to help you understand all the things Going Pro Talent Fund wise. So I've got a presentation I'm going to share here in just a second. Before I get into that, as Petey said, kind of a couple housekeeping things. I really don't mind questions along the way. So if you have a burning question and you don't want to forget it, I'm fine if you pop that in the chat at any time. And if I see it, I can address it as we go. But really, knowing that folks on the call here are kind of all levels of understanding of this particular grant fund, this really does go into kind of all details related to that. So no question is a bad question either. Like I said, everybody has kind of a different understanding of it, but happy to be here and excited to share some information with you. So as Petey mentioned, I'm Ashley Iovieno. I serve as the Business Services Manager with Michigan Works Southwest. We cover 4 counties in Southwest Michigan of Branch, Calhoun, St. Joe, and Kalamazoo. So even if you are an employer that's not in Kalamazoo specifically, and you're in one of those other counties, or even beyond that, we can either get you connected to our additional partners, or we can assist you. So I am going to share my screen here, and we will get into it. Okay, Going Pro Talent Fund fiscal year FY 2022. So it's hard to believe that we are already towards the end of September, but really rolling into getting things prepared for the next year. So what is the Going Pro Talent Fund? This is a grant that is a competitive opportunity for employers to apply for. That's a state-run grant, so it's state dollars. And really it's used to assist employers in developing, training, upskilling, retaining employees. And so this is an opportunity if you are an employer that does training for incumbent workers and you're looking for some support around that, this could be an opportunity for that. It's also a great chance for any employers that are looking to hire some folks in this upcoming year and need some support around wage reimbursement. But it's also a really great opportunity for employers that have apprenticeship programs. There's an apprenticeship component that's built into this. And so it's there's some dollars to help offset some expenses and costs that are incurred with that. So this is a grant that really focuses around, continuing to develop individuals and help them get credentials, and really think of it as after they attended some kind of training, they can put that particular opportunity on their resume. So I'm certified now in blueprint reading, for example. So back in 2018, the Going Pro Talent Fund was codified. And what this means is for a while there, when it was first started back in, I think it was around 2011 or so, or maybe 2014, sorry about that. It was something where it was kind of experimental in a way. So we didn't really know if it was going to be around each year. But because it gained so much popularity and so many employers were able to benefit from it, they decided back in 2018 to codify it. So it means it's a part of the budget now. It just needs to be, dollars need to be allocated to it each year. So this funding is a reimbursement. So what that means is employers would apply for the funds, hopefully get them. They would go forth with doing their trainings. Once they're complete with it, turn all appropriate documentation into us, and then get reimbursed for those costs that they had incurred. So you don't get the money up front or anything like that. So it's really important that you, in your planning, you understand that kind of side of it. So as I mentioned before, it's competitive applications, and every year they anticipate the demand to exceed the supply. And that's something that we've seen pretty consistently throughout. So we work with employers to make sure that your application really speaks to your needs and really gets down to what is going to help you as a company be able to grow and succeed. So, this slide just really kind of highlights a couple of the key priorities for 2022. So each year the grant, the state kind of reevaluates it and makes some adjustments along the way. Sometimes new trainings will get added. Sometimes trainings will get taken out as eligible. And so this year, this is just a quick highlight on kind of some of the priorities that are around the grant. So really wanting training to result in college credit. This really speaks to the Governor Whitmer's goal around the 60 by 30. And as you can see, that is another part on the slide here. So it's all about trying to continue to train and upskill our entire workforce so that we get to that educational attainment level across the state by 2030. So there's still a priority around first year US DOL registered apprenticeships. That's United States Department of Labor registered apprentices. So there are more points built into the scoring criteria this year for smaller funding requests, as well as there is a bit that's around promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion through targeted population incentives. Okay, so the big question on everyone's mind each year is, where are we at with funding? What does that look like? What's the budget? If I submit an application, what are my chances of getting funded? Because obviously that depends on how much money there's even there in the entire pot. So this slide kind of just runs through and gives you a bit of an idea of just where the budget's been at for the last several years. So 2019, around 30 million or so. 2020, the tough year all around. So some employers maybe on this call remember that we were going forth with everything until a budget was set, just about ready to pull the trigger and get a budget there. And then, things really escalated with the pandemic and all funds needed to be redirected to that. So it was not funded in 2020 and we weren't able to move forward with the applications. But back in 2021 here, and there was a healthy budget of 39 million. So you see a question mark by FY 2022. So this is a bit of a roller coaster we're riding yet in terms of what the budget's going to look like this year. So everything that we're hearing is that things are going forward and it looks really good. So I don't want anyone on the call to be, discouraged with that. But until something is signed on the dotted line, we are just in a little bit of a holding pattern right now. And we are expecting this to get taken care of this week, if not very early next week. So this is, when you see some of those things happening, the press releases, Governor Whitmer and other folks are in the media, they're talking about the state budget. That's what we're waiting on for that to be signed by all partners. They needed to get into session and vote on it. So we're paying very, very close attention to this, but until that budget is actually signed and set, we're in a little bit of a holding pattern with a few things that I'll get into later. But from what we're hearing, everything looks good and promising, but like I said, till it's signed on the dotted line. But if you're somebody that really wants to kind of have an idea of what has this program done? What does it look like over the last several years and get into some of those numbers, I'd have you pay attention to some of these slides here. So this just gives you some comparison across FY 17, 18, and 19. And just to really give you an idea of, what is the average amount? What is the cost per trainee and average award amount? It's a nice slide to be able to kind of rein it in, because I think it could be a little overwhelming too. Like, okay, go out there and get this grant. What is a good dollar amount that I should, estimate or kind of shoot for? I'd really encourage you to look at just more what your needs are as a company and then kind of see where it lands there. But this gives you just a little bit of perspective around that. So this next slide also shows just a little bit more data if you're interested in kind of, what size employers have gotten funded over the last several years and, what the total number of awards are. So you can see just a little over 4,000, which is pretty great, which is pretty amazing really over the last several years. And the average award amount and then how much, kind of per cost per person. The circle towards the middle of the screen there just shows a nice breakdown around the size of companies getting awarded. So as you can see, fewer than 100 employees has the bulk of the awards. So that's on purpose in terms of, we want this grant to be something that all employers feel like they can apply for, whether you're a company that has 3 employees or you're a company that has 3,000 employees. There's opportunity out there for you. So it's not, the money just going to the big companies kind of thing. All right, so with this process, there are 2 types of applications. There's the independent side of it, which is one employer applying for the needs that they have at their company. And then there's the industry-led collaborative side of it, where there's multiple employers coming together to collaborate on an application. So with the ILC portion of it, it must be comprised of 2 minimum employers, but really it's preferable if it's 3 or more. We've done several of these with area companies, and we've had, I think the largest one we had, I think was maybe 9 or so companies that came together. They all had a similar training need. I can't remember exactly which one it was. It might've been like leadership training, and they were, kind of small to mid-sized companies, couldn't really afford to send, 12 people from their company to a leadership training at the same time. But they could do, 3, and another company could do 4, and, another one was doing 5. And just like that, by coming together with other area partners, a cohort formed there, and you're able to share resources. They shared a training provider and did the course together. So it's a unique way to kind of just leverage an opportunity here that, depending on the time of the year of when you could actually send people to training. So an employer is allowed to have 1 independent application as well as be a part of 1 ILC award. One thing I'll note about that is a change from previous years. There wasn't necessarily a rule around this. We had at one point in time an employer that was a part of 2 ILCs, but didn't have any independent applications. So they did kind of tighten this up a little bit where it's 1 and 1 now. Okay, so application period. So I giggle at this because once again, this is a part of that roller coaster. So the open application was supposed to open on September 20th, which was obviously this last Monday here. And because that budget is not signed and set yet, the actual application is not available yet. So we are patiently waiting and have been told that once everything goes forward, there will be a press release and we'll be able to shoot information out to employers, letting you know, yep, green light, good to go. The application can be started now. With that being said, I'm going to get into some pieces in a little bit here on kind of what the process looks like, because there are some things that you can do right now, even though you can't get into the application. And so we highly encourage employers to do those things now and not wait, just so that we can work through any tech issues, work through any, company issues, whatever that might be, just so we can get you in. And then when it does open, then you're just good to go and you're ready to hop in and start putting in your information. Now you can see, we've got some language in there around a 4-week open application period. I was on a call with the state most of the day yesterday. We were talking more in depth about just going for a talent fund. And we've been told that we will still get that 4-week window, even though it's been a little bit delayed here. So that's what we are planning on right now. But we go with what the state provides us. So sometimes we have to be a little flexible in that. So as soon as we have those dates, though, we will get that out. But we've been promised that we'll still be able to have those 4 weeks to work with employers to get their application in. Now that 4-week window, that only comes around once a year for the independent side of it. So it really is something that even if you're feeling a little like, okay, we got a lot going on in our company right now, are we going to be able to put together an application? I still highly encourage you to really take a few minutes and look at this and see if it's something that makes sense, because every year, it never fails. We, a month after the application period closes, we get an employer that reaches out and goes, hey, I really want to apply for that Going Pro Talent Fund. And it's like now you got to wait another, 12 months or so before it'll open up back up again. So it can be a difficult thing to plan for. I get it, because you're filing the application here in the fall for training that would start in January. Doesn't have to start in January, but it could start in January. And it would be, you'd have that whole year time frame of January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. So you have that year time frame to get these trainings in. And I can totally get and sympathize that it's difficult in the fall here to plan for what next year will look like, on top of a pandemic and other, supply chain shortages and all those things that are happening. Totally get it. And that's why it's got to be right for you as a company and whether you decide to apply. So you can see the awards are expected to be announced in December. So even though we're experiencing some delays here in terms of the application opening, they're anticipating still everything to be on track in terms of, those are drop dead dates. We have to get the words out in December so that employers can start training in January and get those scheduled. So this was also something that when it was codified, that year-long training period was put into place, which is nice, because if any employers on the call remember applying for years in the past, it was a little bit more flexible, or a little bit more open, I guess I should say. It was, you could start training upon approval of your plan, which could have started in November, could have started in, December. So this way it gives a little bit more of a stricter timeline. And I think that probably helps folks plan a little bit better too. So no single training should exceed 6 months. As I already said that, the training must start, training can start, I should say, on January 1st, 2022, but cannot go past the December 31st, 2022 date. And then, the new employee onboarding portion would need to be concluded by October 2nd to allow for that 90-day retention period for full reimbursement. On the right-hand side there, you'll see there's the timeline for the ILC portion. So it does have a separate application timeline, and they really, it's kind of 2 grants within one, and they do really run more independently from each other. The ILC side of it, we've been told is going to open in February 2022, which actually is earlier than in the past. In the past, it's been opening around the spring timeframe, and the application period was open until the funds were exhausted. So usually it was like kind of open in spring and it would close by, sometime late summer. And then the awards are announced really as those applications are received. So a little bit different from on each side here. With the independent side of it, we have a little bit more of a, awards announced kind of in this time frame. But with those ILCs, there's a little bit more of a quicker turnaround time. And it's just due to they're not processing 1,200 ILCs as they are 1,200, independent applications. So as soon as they get those ILCs, they review them, get them scored, and usually we hear back within about 2 weeks or so. Okay, funding allotment. So this is a really nice breakdown around the 3 different categories of the grant. So in the classroom training section of things, so if you're planning on doing some training for incumbent workers, you are sending 12 people to blueprint reading class, and you want to take advantage of this. You could get up to $1,500 per person, not per class. So it could work out where you say, we need to send these 10 people to blueprint reading. We need to send these 5 people to, CNC or something, just kind of throwing things out there. And you get both classes and it equals up to $1,500. That's allowable. Then the second portion of it is if you're looking to hire some new people on your team next year. So if you're looking at it and you're going, okay, 2022 is going to bring us an additional 10 employees that we really need to get hired in that year. And the occupation title, you would put that on your training plan, and you would estimate their starting wage and estimate how many onboarding hours it will take to get that person up to speed in that position. And they'll do a little equation there, onboarding hours times the wage, and you get a dollar amount. $1,500 of that dollar amount is reimbursable through this grant. So once the onboarding portion of it is complete, then that particular person will then need to stay 90 days after that in order for you to submit the proper documentation to us and get reimbursed. So the last part on the slide here is around the apprenticeship piece. So any first year United States Department of Labor registered apprentices, I should say, can qualify for up to $3,000 per person. So that's a combination of some classroom training and some on-the-job training. Once again, there's documentation involved in that, submitting that to us, and up to $3,000. So the cost on that one's a little bit higher because an apprenticeship program is a little bit more of a larger investment. So state recognizes that and added some additional dollars there. So this slide here goes over some targeted population incentives. So now this is only for the new hire section. So if you're looking to hire some folks and you are looking at tapping into some different population groups that maybe you haven't utilized in the past, you could get some extra dollars. So for example, if you hire a veteran that's on one of those new hires there, and you're getting up to $1,500 net wage reimbursement, and you can turn in some documentation proving that this person is a veteran at time of closeout, you could get additional $500. So that's, sweetens the pot a little bit there. Well, now it's $2,000 for those individuals. So this is all the categories that are the population incentive category of additional dollars. And as you can see, the high school diploma equivalency path is actually $1,000. So once again, feeding into that goal around upscaling and reaching that educational attainment level. So the one rule around this though is you can't have somebody who is a veteran and an older worker and get $1,000. They can't be added together. It's kind of one or the other kind of thing. And then on the right there, you'll see what classifies. Like I know the term returning citizen. A lot of folks are like, what does that mean? I just returned from another country. Does that count? No, that is really the state's term for somebody that has been incarcerated or coming out of some kind of correctional facility. And then you see in the bottom left-hand corner there, there's some new things around 2022 around individuals on public assistance or individuals with disabilities. So another category that's been added. So a lot of dollars out there and opportunity. Okay, so just getting a little bit more into who can participate. So eligible employers are private employer, either for-profit or nonprofit. They did change the rule around some public institutions not being able to apply. In the past, they were able to. Federally qualified health centers, for example, used to be able to apply. Now they can't. And they must have the employers must have a presence in Michigan, need for the training. Definitely got to be in compliance with all state and federal tax obligations. So that's a biggie because these are state tax dollars that are being utilized for this training fund. So if an employer finds out that they aren't in compliance, because sometimes some of that kind of happens, but they're eligible for an award, the state would work with us in the company to make sure the company has a little bit of time to get that cleared up. And then once it is, they could be awarded. We've had that happen before and it's not been a problem. And then willing to participate under the project's eligibility parameters and guidelines. And there's some things around providing that documentation, wages of employees, those kinds of items. So two types of employees that can be trained: current employees, defined as individuals on the payroll at the time of application, the new hire portion of it. So individuals hired 30 days prior to, on, or after the award date specified in the award letter. So what's important to note about that one is, so even though training starts January 1st, if you hire somebody on December 15th, because there's a 30-day look back, they can be eligible for that new hire section. So really, it gives you an extra month, if you will, to get people hired and on your team. And then the first year apprentices part of it, we've talked a little about that. They may be incumbents. So folks that are already on your team that are looking to go into an apprenticeship program, they could qualify. It's more emphasis on that first year side of it, or they could be new hires. You could be using this as a strategy to get some new folks into your workforce and get them into an apprenticeship program. It's something that's allowable under this grant. So every eligible employee, though, must be a permanent full-time employee of the awarded employer. Full-time defined as minimum of 32 hours per week. The seasonal or part-time employees are not eligible and must work for an employer in Michigan who pays all those applicable taxes. But this was also changed a couple years ago, especially with some counties that we have that are on the border there. The employee itself does not have to live in Michigan. They just have to work for a company that is in Michigan. So that's a nice adjustment that they've made, because we've got quite a few people that go across the border each and every day. Be 18 years of age or older, and then be a U.S. citizen or legally authorized to work in the U.S. So our key partners in this grant here is, obviously Michigan Works agencies who administer the grant. Our role within this is to provide support, education, and really help manage those grants with employers. So we see all of these grants. We see all the applications. We've read, I think, 1,000 rationales at this point. So we know what to look for, and we know different tips and tricks that we can provide around, hey, I think you need to go a little bit more in depth on this piece, or hey, just saw this particular error here. We need to get that cleared up before we get it submitted to the state. Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and then our local economic developers like Southwest Michigan First, all partners in this work to help educate employers and have a good understanding of this grant and this opportunity. And then our Michigan community colleges and other allowable training providers. So arguably, when we're talking about all these pieces here, you got to have a training provider to go back to be able to schedule out those courses. So they're definitely a key partner in this. Okay, so who are those eligible training providers now? So as I mentioned, Michigan community colleges and universities, other training providers licensed in the state of Michigan. Employers could be that training provider too, if you have a very specialized business or something that you're doing that makes sense, and you have a really strong rationale to back it up of this is what we do, this is how we need to operate. That could be allowable. And then vendors providing training and operation of equipment, so which they are a provider for. So as an example of that, if you purchase a piece of equipment and vendor comes in, they set up this piece of equipment, and it's something that's still pretty, brand new to all the employees there. If there's a training that is provided by that vendor on how to operate, how to function this piece of equipment, that's something else that could be allowable. Okay, so what kind of trainings are eligible? So we talked a little bit about this, really the growth and development of individuals. So hopefully it's leading to promotions and, moving up the chain there at each company. Training leading to a credential or skill, it's transferable, filling a demonstrated need. And then the very bottom portion of this talks a little bit more about virtual training or that online training piece. Now, this is something that has really become a hot topic, especially over this last couple of years here with the pandemic. It just struggles for employers and training providers to be able to kind of come together on this in terms of, a lot of companies have had some different rules around, hey, like we don't necessarily want you leaving the building because it's, safety concern with the COVID situation. And then it's kind of awkward of like, hey, we don't really allow guests on the building premises. So we've had quite a few employers look at what that would look like to do some online training there. So the guidance that we're providing on this, and we've pushed the state a little bit to be a little bit more realistic in terms of, hey, we're in a pandemic, like everybody's trying to survive and figure out how to best function within this realm. So they've opened it up just a little bit here. And when I say that, there's still definitely some things that are not allowed under this category, but online training is allowable. The best advice we can give is that should be instructor-led, cannot be something that's like self-paced. So an individual can't come in and go, hey, I'm just gonna sit down here and plug away for an hour and then I'm good to go for 2 weeks. Not anything self-paced. They really want that camaraderie with other students and with the instructor. And then it does still, need to lead to a credential or some kind of certificate. And then there's some other kind of criteria around, like, is it not within a reasonable travel distance for an employer to send somebody to the actual, college course physically. But we work with employers here on what that rationale looks like and how to best have it speak for your company. Okay, so how do I apply here? So a couple years ago, the application itself switched from being a Word document and an Excel training plan to now being all online through this portal that we call WeBloom. So if you hear us use that term, that's what we're referring to is the online portal for your application. In the middle of the screen here, you'll see the acronym there too. So you'll get familiar with that. This is the state's page here on where you should go to start off to get into the application. So in the middle of the screen here, there's a place where you can click there and be able to then get into the portal. Towards the bottom here, I will say they do provide some really helpful program overviews and fact sheets and, FAQs. Utilize those items there. There's some things that we've worked with the state for them to put together of employer guides that really walks you through every step of the way. We're obviously here to help and assist with that. But if you're somebody that's like, I just need to read it and to see it, those things are available. So I do encourage you to scroll down further on the page to check those things out. It could also be helpful if you're like, I have to go and take this to our management so they understand what this is and what does it look like. Use those different one-pagers and fact sheets to talk with those groups. Okay, so when you click into that, that's going to send you over to this particular page here. So this is the start page, if you will. Very important in the middle of the screen there. The system is only going to work if you are in Chrome or Edge browsers. We have had this happen several times on the phone with the employer. I can't get in. I don't understand why it's not working. What browser are you using? Oh, not Chrome or Edge. Okay, let's adjust there, and then we'll get you in from there. And you can see some links at the bottom here on additional things to get signed in. So it'll send you to this page first, and there's really kind of two parts to getting into the application. There's first getting some login credentials set up. So to get the login credentials set up, there's two different ways you can do it. If it's connected to a Pure Michigan Talent Connect account, which is the state site for that job matching, you can follow these steps here. I'm not going to go through all these, but these will all be included, and we will send out this presentation afterwards too. So you'll have access to all these things, and you can come back through. So these are the steps though to get you signed up if you're using the opportunity through PMTC. And once you have those login credentials, you can use those to log into that page that we were just on. Or you could skip that side of it and you can log in to the system following this way. So like your company already has the PMTC stuff set up and you don't want to mess with that. It's like, the things are going fine there. I'm going to go this route here. You could also do this opportunity. Okay, so once that you are in the system here, this is now you've logged in. Here's step 2. And this is when you are filling out this information in order to request access to the application. So when you're requesting access to the application, it's called an authorization request. So you would fill out some basic information about the company, just, FEIN number, what are you doing business as, the address, who is your Michigan Works contact that you're talking with? Is it me? Is it Paula? Is it Cabrina? And then, who you are as the contact from the company too. So we know who we need to reach out to. There's a little button there, which is which Michigan Works agency that you'd be selecting. That's Michigan Works Southwest. And the one big part there where you see the big arrow pointing to site plant facility name, that seems to be an area where it catches some folks up. So we provided some additional guidance around that. What we are looking for in that is, the company name, comma, where you're located. And when I say where, I'm talking city. So for example, Pfizer would put, Pfizer, comma, Portage, or, Kalamazoo, something like that. Just a little bit more detail around it. We have a lot of folks that'll put just like, Battle Creek or, Kalamazoo. And when they do that on our side of it, that's all we see. We're not able to see exactly what company it is. So we get in there and there's 20 applications that just say Kalamazoo, and it can get really confusing. We've worked with the state to try to update this particular slide, and we're getting there. So as we've mentioned before, it's a competitive application process. So really, take the time to prepare and put your best foot forward. So a couple other additional things here around the scoring criteria. So now you're at a stage where you've gotten in, you've filled out your application, you've submitted to us. We're saying, yep, we've gone over some edits with you, you've corrected them, we're good to go. Everyone feels good, we submit it to the state. Once it gets there, they have folks on a team that will review every application and utilize this scoring criteria to score them. What we like about this too is that there's some good transparency around this. You really can take a look at this and look at your application and kind of have an idea of what you're going to score within that. So it's a nice opportunity to kind of feel it out a little bit. Obviously, there's some areas there a little bit more subjective, but there's a lot that is just really kind of black and white. So I'm not going to go too many details into this part. This side on with the stars there just indicate that there's been some changes in those particular categories. And as you can see, there's some adjustments around the size of the funding request. depending on how many dollars that you're looking to go after. Okay, so as you can tell though from that scoring criteria, the rationale is one of the most important pieces of the overall application. So the rationale is got a couple different sections to it of introductory statement, description of your need and business case, and then the explanation of the training with the tie-in to that need. This is an area that I highly encourage employers to spend a little bit of time on. I'm not saying that this is something that you should write a book on and have a really long explanation on why you need these funds to do training, but do spend time to be clear, concise, but also descriptive on what these dollars could actually do for your company. So introductory of just who you are, what's your footprint, what kind of goods services, things you produce, a little bit just about that history side of your company. Description wise, going a little bit more into this is how the COVID situation has impacted us. But we are on track and we are looking to scale, train people and scale up, and we're wanting to acquire additional properties, kind of things like that. And then what these trainings would do to help you accomplish those goals. Okay, so by training these 20 people, it's going to allow us to expand and take on new contracts and additional equipment and whatever else. Plus, it's also going to help these employees feel valued and really go into what's the explanation around this. Just can't emphasize this part enough. So a little bit about leverage funds, employer contribution side of things. There are different things that you can't get reimbursed from the grant, but they don't get lost in translation, so meaning that they count for something. So if you are somebody that is paying for a travel cost to send people to training, whether that's hotel, meals, gas, whatever else, those items there can be counted in your leverage fund / your contribution, employer contribution. And a couple screens back, we saw that on that scoring criteria there was a part around getting points around having enough of those leverage funds. So we work with employers to make sure that we're looking at all scenarios there to make sure all those are captured in the application, so then you get your points for that particular category. There's oftentimes a lot of employers have a lot of leverage funds that they don't even necessarily realize. So that's where we ask some probing questions, try to find that out. But it's something where the state fully recognizes that in order for you to send people to training, there are some costs that you're incurring there that are not eligible to be reimbursed, but should still be counted towards something. So that's kind of what this category is. So here's are some of those non-reimbursable training expenses too. We get questions around this a lot. So I would just mention, those travel costs to send people to training, the licensing fees or testing fees with items, all things that cannot be reimbursed with this particular grant, but are counted in the scoring criteria. So we do ask about them and ask you to provide some detail around it because it goes towards, having a good amount of leverage funds from what you're asking in comparison to what kind of skin in the game you have. So really that needs to be at least a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, so a couple slides just to finish up here. So expectations of employers, so utilizing that Pure Michigan Talent Connect to recruit for your openings, really drilling down to what your need is at your company, being involved in that planning of the trainings. We do expect you to sign and adhere to a contract that we put together after you would be awarded. Just to make sure you have an idea of what is expected of us, what we expect of you, kind of thing. So there is the part around providing wage information prior to training, at the completion of training, and 6 months post training. That's on all individuals that are being trained, is we will need wage information. Do expect you to pay wages that are equal to or above the prevailing wage in that particular area. This is not a fund that's available for low wage, high turnover positions. And then we've already talked a little bit about that, contributing to the training, cash or in kind. If you're having any layoffs or experiencing issues around that, notifying us, and then we can determine what the impact is going to be on the overall process. Providing that required documentation that I've mentioned when the training is complete. So I think I mentioned something around invoices from those training providers, certificate of completion for individuals going through training. Those are a few examples. Retaining employees at the end of training, and then providing an impact story. So you're thinking to yourself right now, wow, this has been a lot of information. Where do I go next? How do I figure this out? So a couple key takeaways. One, you're not alone in this process. We work with all employers on helping to make sure that your application is strong and of really good quality, so you have a great opportunity to get funded. But really what your key takeaways are from this presentation are next steps is identifying what your training hiring needs are. So sitting down with hiring managers, HR folks, training coordinators at your companies, president, whoever it might be, and go, look, we need to take a look at what 2022 looks like. What are the really key things that we need to accomplish? And let's start putting that together. Then after that, it's developing your business training plan. So, you know, let's put it down on paper here. Who could we send logically, and what could that look like? And then starting to collaborate with those other additional partners. So that might be working with your training provider, going, okay, we really know we want to use this training provider here. Like I got to get in contact with them so we can see even what courses are available throughout the year, those kinds of those things. And then once that application period opens, hopefully at that stage, you have all of these materials here and you just come sit down, fill it all out and submit it to us. And then we will work with you back and forth before we then submit the application to the state for that final review and scoring. Okay, so I know there's some time later on for questions. I'm going to flick through these last couple slides here just so you're kind of aware. Here is just contact list for all the employees on my team here that are working with Going for Talent Fund. So you can see we have a good amount of people here that are ready and willing and able to help you through this process. For any employers that are in the Kalamazoo area, so you can see there's 2 people listed there, Paula Kaiser and Sabrina Clark. So those are 2 folks on my team right now that are working together. We're in a little transition where Paula is leaving us in a couple of weeks and Sabrina is taking over. So they are working in tandem as a strong team. So there's some contact information for both of them. And then at the end of this, I'm not going to get into this, but we get asked around questions of like, what's an eligible training? What does that look like? And, you know, does this training work? The last couple slides here are just some examples. The state's provided a nice kind of list of these trainings are eligible and these trainings are not eligible. So you'll see that and you'll be able to read through them. With that being said, that is not an all-inclusive list on either end. This is just an example list to kind of get you started. And you can go, oh wait, okay, we want to do leadership training, but is that acceptable? You could refer to this and go, yep, it is, with the strong rationale kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing because I know that was a lot.
Thank you, Ashley. That was amazing. You have so much information and it's so concise, and I just really appreciate you sharing that with us. I do have a couple questions I want to ask before we talk with Bonnie. Can people access those forms beforehand? I mean, is there a way to at least see what the form looks like so you can have it ready to just copy and paste?
Yeah, so great question. So when the system was updated and put into the online portal, we don't necessarily have an exact way to download. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna change my answer as I'm giving you an answer.
All right.
Yeah, so kind of 2 parts. With that employer guide, they actually have taken screenshots of the application. So if you follow that all the way through, you'd be able to use that to build out your full application. They made some changes around that. So I apologize for my mixed answer at the beginning. So you'll have that as a way to really be able to follow through. And then the other thing that we provide too, that we think is helpful for employers is an Excel template that is where they really help on that training plan side of it. So they can use that Excel document to start putting in individuals to start like figuring out how many people we're going to send and what training courses. So we do have a template for that. And its sole purpose is to put the information in there. And then when they're ready to fill out the application, to sit down with that template and just put that into the system.
That's awesome. Thank you. And then another question, how has the Kalamazoo region fared, or Southwest Michigan region? How has it fared with awards in the last year or 2?
Yeah, so really great question, and really well, actually. So last year, you know, we submitted overall 44 applications for across the 4 counties, and Kalamazoo County did have the most. And that number was actually lower than the applications we submitted in 2020 that didn't go anywhere. But even though the number of applications was lower, the overall dollar amount request was higher. So that's important to know, because that's still a lot of training dollars that were coming into our area. We just had fewer employers that requested it, but at higher dollar amounts. So it was around 2 million or so, a little over that, which was really a nice. So across the area, the 16 Michigan Works agencies, we were I think it was the third or fourth highest for dollar amount wise. And that's really important to note because, even if we're looking at region wise, we're competing with places like Grand Rapids that submits over 200 applications every single year, a lot of really big businesses and companies up there. So we've fared really well over the last couple of years.
Well, it sounds like working with you and taking the guidance and taking advantage of the expertise that you and your team have is really crucial to the success.
Yeah, very much so. We're happy to work with anyone, and we're in it with you.
So thank you so much, Ashley. This has been incredibly helpful. And just for everyone on the call, we will be going ahead and sharing out the full slide presentation, as well as contact information for the individuals who are there. It's an incredible resource, and I just really appreciate you and your commitment to these companies. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead now, speaking of regional companies, let's go ahead and take a minute to have a conversation with Bonnie. Bonnie is here from Sigma Machine and is going to answer some questions from the employer side on her experience. So Bonnie, thank you for being here. I know that you're only on the phone, but we'd love for you to unmute yourself and be ready to jump right in. So one of the first questions I have, can you tell us a little bit about you and then your experience and history with the Going Pro Talent Fund? Bonnie, if you are speaking, you are on mute.
I am unmuted now.
There you are. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to let you ask me questions.
Could you just tell us a little bit about your experience with the Going Pro Talent Fund?
We've been getting grants since 2017. And the first year in 2017, I had no idea what I was doing. So I said, I'll hire 16 new people because we're growing. And they gave me a grant to hire 16 new people, which we actually hired 20 that year. So then I got a little more savvy and did a little more research and started picking up training that would be valuable for the company. And we've gotten training grants. I have 2 apprenticeship programs that have been started through the Going Pro Fund. And every year, as far as the big thing on the points is the Rationale. I've got all my Rationale since 2017, and I look at them to see how we've grown and how it's gone back, and I expound on those each year as we focus on another point of training. But no, it's great. We've gotten it every year. It's, it's some work. My managers now come to me in the middle of summer going, when's the training fund coming up? Or this is what I want to do. So it's a company thing with us now.
How far ahead do you look and make your training plan? Are you doing it just by year? Are you looking ahead? As you've done this now for a few years, how do you do that?
We have long-term company goals and where we're going to be in a company in 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. My training's a little more short-sighted. I go out, what do I need 3 years from now? What we're currently working on is IATF certification, which I didn't know a whole lot about and had to be explained to me. And that's a 3-year project. And this will be our 3rd year finishing up on that training so we can get that certification in-house. Now my next goal is, it was all quality-based. Now my next goal is, for the next 2 years, is machine maintenance, because that's a skilled trade that's hard to come by now. So that's how I start all my apprenticeship programs is what do we need as a company and how am I filling that need? And if we can't find people to come to work for us, I start an apprenticeship program and we train people. Either we start in-house or we'll take it outside the company. And that way I have that talent in 3 years when they get a journeyman's card.
How early do you start your planning in the specific year?
We usually start between June and July because we have to have the application is always in the fall. So I have the managers start coming up to me. I will send emails out. This is the goal for the company for the next 18 months for the company. What kind of training would you like to provide your department? And then we see if it's viable.
And so talking about your employees and retention being such a big part of everything that you're doing, how does this training fund affect your talent pool and your existing employees?
We use before we got the Going Pro fund, you bring employees in, training dollars are short. You can always buy a new machine or, it's needed over here. And training was kind of like an afterthought. Well, we have this dedicated money now, $1,500, so I can actually bring new employees in and train them correctly, or the company trains them correctly. And that way they're not lost, because you lose employees sooner rather than later if they feel lost and they can't do what you want them to do. And then you're looking at them going, why can't you do your job? Well, we didn't train them correctly. So now we have the funding to train them correctly at the beginning. And then after they've been here, we send them to classes to empower them. That way they're even better at their jobs. They're taking them up the next level. And that's how we're utilizing the fund now.
Is it having any effect on retention?
Yes, it is. With the better you empower, because it's a factory, and it's skilled labor, but it's a factory. There's nothing glamorous about it. And people will say, well, I work in a factory, and it's like, oh, really? Okay. Well, now you say, well, I'm a CNC operator, and they're training me to do GD&T. They're training me how to program the machine. So I'm not just pushing a button. You're empowering your employees. So if your employees feel valued, they'll stay with your company. I have employees who have been with this company for 12 years when they were in a little pole barn in Parchment before we came over to Midlake. And you always hire or always promote from within if possible, and you always train, because that's how you keep them.
Great advice. So we have just a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask you a tough question. What things do you wish you knew before you started on the journey with Going Pro? And what would you like to share to people who are on the call who maybe haven't done this before?
Plan ahead of time what kind of training you need. And, like my first year, I had no clue. We did one robotics training, but I did 16 new hires. And, you just build it out. It's, production order on the lines. I didn't even have names because you didn't hire them yet. And then see what you truly need. It's, and it could be just, well, it would be nice if we sent them here. Why? Okay, well, we had to upscale our quality department because of this IATF certification. So it was back to the basics. The entire quality department was sent to training. And we had one girl who took 4 classes that year. So you just keep taking the classes and it empowers the employees. Now my quality department's good. We're still working on being better, but it's a teamwork with the company. And like I said, if you keep looking at your rationale statements from the year before, the first one's always daunting, but Southwest Michigan First, they're on it. You call them, they answer your questions. Paula's been a lifesaver. Ashley's been a lifesaver. Devin sends me emails going, Bonnie, really? And it's like, sorry. So utilize them. They help. They really do.
Awesome. And then any tips on the application itself? Is there anything when you're filling it out that you think people should really know?
On the training aspect, where you have to write down the training, I cut and paste. I truly do. I don't rewrite what the training curriculum is. I cut and paste the whole thing, because if you leave something out because you're trying to consolidate it, they're asked not to be wordy. Ashley just said that, don't write a book. I think she was talking about me. But I'll cut and paste all the curriculum. That way they know exactly what we're training for. Look, she's laughing. She knows. I tend to be a bit wordy, as you can tell. But I just write down everything. It's classic. They're correcting my grammar constantly. Which is okay too, because they want it to look nice. They will correct your grammar, so you don't have to worry about that.
It sounds like leaning on the team at Michigan Works is the way to go.
It really is. They're wonderful.
We're building.
Any last thoughts? Any last thoughts, Bonnie, that you want to share?
Just don't be overwhelmed by it. it's a lot of paper, and now it's online, so it's even more overwhelming because I'm a paper person. I like to touch it. I'm old. So it tends to, well, you know, it is. But it tends to be overwhelming. Don't let it overwhelm you. Take the screenshots, you know, basically just tell them why you want the training, why you think it's important. And that's all the state wants to know. And, you know, why do you think it's important? Why should we give you the money? And like I said, I've gotten that grant every year I've applied for it. So everybody wants to work with you, and training dollars, they want to give it to companies who can use them to keep jobs in Michigan, keep businesses in Michigan. That's the whole point.
Great. Thank you so much. Ashley, do you have anything else to add as we wrap up?
Just you know, piggybacking off of what Bonnie said, yeah, if it's feeling overwhelming or anything like that at all, we're here. This is, you know, it's not employers' jobs to be grant writers. So we recognize that, and we provide that support to help through every step of the way, from, you know, as little as how do we get you in the system to as much as I don't even know where to start on my rationale. We are here to provide all that guidance. We appreciate you, Bonnie, and all the back and forth. You're a seasoned veteran with this particular fund. And it was music to my ears when I heard you say, we start planning in June, because that's what we want to hear. But I don't want that to deter anyone that hasn't started planning, because it's not too late. You got to just get started. And as Bonnie mentioned, like once you really get into it and you really start understanding the grant, then it just becomes something that can really be something you hopefully potentially try to rely on. I mean, obviously it's still competitive, but it's something that can be built into your company strategy on just taking advantage of the funds that are out there. So just thank you to everyone today, and please let us know if you need anything.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley. I really appreciate all your insights. Bonnie, thank you for sharing your story as well. I hope everyone on the call found this really helpful. Clearly, we'll be following up with information on that. Two last things. Number one, I just want to let you know that our next Business First session is October 21st, and we're going to be talking about becoming a certified minority, woman, or veteran-owned business. So please join us for that on October 21st, same time. And then also one last thank you to Blue Cross Blue Shield for their support of this program. We hope it's been beneficial and hope to see you on another event soon. We wrap up right on time. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.